Hi folks, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. Jim Thompson, Douglas McKenzie here again to talk to one of our cronies from around the Burns world. Hiya Jim, how are you doing today?
Hi Douglas, I'm tired. 3-year-olds too rough on me nowadays.
Well folks, tonight's guest is a very well-known performer on the Burns scene, and he's very busy at this time of year. So cronies everywhere, please welcome Bobby McCallum.
Evening chaps, nice to see you.
Aye, nice to see you as well, Bobby. What's life like up your way?
Quite quiet at the moment, apart for weekends when I'm away doing Burns suppers. Just wearying in the fishing season starting.
Anyway, if you've seen some of these podcasts, you'll know that our first question is always, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, certainly can. Probably most people know I was born and brought up in Auchinleck and stayed there for about 35 years. I was one of 5, from one brother and 3 sisters. My mum and dad, well, my mum came from Cumnock. My dad came originally from Argyllshire, from Clachan in Argyllshire, and spent some of his time there, some in Greenock, before he finally moved to Auchinleck as a beaving boy to work in the Barney pit. So I was brought up in Auchinleck, attended Auchinleck Primary School, and from there passed my 11 plus and went to Cumnock Academy, where I basically probably wasted my time, and left school at 16 and started an apprenticeship in Turboughton, of all places, as a plater welder. And I was there for about six months. It was a very small place. It was only myself and the gaffer. So for a young adventurous boy of 16, it was a wee bit kind of too quiet for my liking. So the opportunity came up to get an apprenticeship with the coal board, and I jumped at it and moved from Turboughton to Lugar Workshops, where I spent 6 happy years and served my time as a welder. Did another 2 years, went to Kilmarnock College, did my technician's papers, and then I left there and went to Jordan Hill College and did a community work course. Come out of there, got a job in Campbelltown, which I absolutely hated, and lasted about 6 weeks. Then finally come home and got a job in Cumnock as a community worker, with along with one of your stalwart members, Donald McVicker, and spent many happy years in Cumnock as a community worker. From there, I got promotion, moved to Ardrossan here, and I've been in Ardrossan ever since. I have my wife Janice, and I have been married 50 years this year. And I have a son and a daughter. My daughter Katrina, she's got 2 boys and a lassie, and Robbie, he's got 3 boys. So I've got 6 grandbabies, and love every one of them.
Very good. You don't look old enough, mind you.
What for? To have grandbabies?
Aye.
Aye, no, I've thought of that myself often. Every time I look in the mirror, I thought, keep thinking.
It's maybe that we went so fast through that how's your life been so far sort of thing. So let me take you back a wee bit. At school, any favourite subjects?
Modern studies. Modern studies and English were my 2 favourite subjects. My least favourite subject was history, which I just couldn't get into history at all. I'm more interested in history now, which is strange, which is maybe part of the reason why I became, I've encouraged a lot of people after I became a community worker, encouraged people to go back to education for the second time. Because for me, certainly, it was far more enjoyable. I didn't like school. I hated school. In fact, when I was in primary school, I was a bit kind of, shall we say, I was very, very shy. And I know people will find that hard to believe, but I was painfully shy. I was so bad, I was even feared to get into a shop and buy sweeties when I was that age. And as a result of that, I got kind of, maybe not physically bullied, but kind of mentally bullied quite a bit at school. So I didn't like school, didn't enjoy it. Cumnock Academy was better, and I came out my shell a wee bit at Cumnock Academy, where I met people that didn't know me, and met friends from, you know, all over the district. So modern studies, I enjoyed modern studies.
I hope some of that bullying when you were at primary school wasn't caused by Jim Thompson, because he spent a bit of time in that area as well.
Aye, different. Well, Jim would be a few years behind me, obviously, and I wouldn't have let him bloody bully me. But anyway, to be fair, I've no fear for him.
I remember I went to Auchinleck Primary School as well. My granny stayed in Well Road, stayed with my granny and round there. And I vaguely memories of you, and you're right, you're a year or two in front of me.
Aye. So that was when I went into, when I went into secondary school, my life sort of really changed an awful lot. I was far more confident in myself, and a lot of friends, and I've been making friends ever since.
You talked about, did you say you didn't like history, but you quite liked English?
I liked English, aye, yeah.
Was that anything to do with your dad? Was he a teacher?
Aye, that would be a big part of it, but it wasn't the full story. I mean, it was just something I liked anyway. Was English, and I was probably good at English because of my dad. You know, because my dad never stopped being a teacher. He was a teacher at the school, and he was a teacher in the house. And you know, we the whole family, we all learned an awful lot. I mean, one of the things about our early years was that we were never short of getting stories read to us by my dad. And I remember when we stayed in Bath Road at the Crescent, we stayed next door to the Rowans, and they had their youngest daughter. She used to come into our house and sit on my father's knee and listen to stories being read there, because she didn't get that in her own house. And that kind of stuck with me, you know. And I did the same with my kids when they were wee. Made sure they get stories read to them every night, because it's a marvellous thing, absolutely marvellous thing, and it's a great way of learning things, you know. So
maybe knowing your dad, I mean, I saw your dad really as a huge influence in me. He must have had a tremendous influence in you and your brother as well, and your sisters.
Yeah, but the surprising thing is that he had an influence on us in so many different ways, Jim. It wasn't just like a lot of people would maybe assume that because he was an English teacher, you know, that academically he would have a huge influence on us, but we all sort of, we all flourished in different ways. I mean, I had no ambitions to go to university. In fact, I think probably the only one that had ambition to go to university was Alec. He went to more or less straight from school into university and became a social worker. The rest of us have all done very well in different, funnily enough, we've all worked in professions where you're working with people, you know, social work, nursing, nursery nursing. My sister Mary, she worked with autistic kids. So I think we were always destined to work with people rather than anything else. And although I worked in industry when I left, I worked in the coal board when I left. It was easy for me to leave there and go to Jordan Hill and train as a community worker, because that was what I liked doing, was working with people, kind of thing. So he was a great influence and a great educator. I tell people, and I mean this in all sincerity, I think he was the cleverest man I ever met. You know, he was so clever in so many different ways. He understood people, which was his greatest asset. He understood people tremendously well. He loved people, and our house was always full of people. You know, from Communist Party members, trade union members, to school teachers on a Friday afternoon. After a week in the school, they would all gather at my mother's house, and my mother would probably have some ham bacon done, and they would sit and they would put the school to rights with the help of a bottle of whiskey or two, you know. So I know all the secrets. I want to know all the dirty secrets.
I liked your comment that he understood people because and that he was clever, because anybody that could understand Jim Thompson must have been very clever.
He
But
certainly
Bobby,
pointed me in the right road, I'll tell you.
Sorry, Jim, you're going to say something there?
So he certainly pointed me in the right road, particularly in relation to Burns.
Yeah, I think
Good.
he did that with quite a number of people, you know, not just in relation to Burns, but in relation to a lot, as I've already said, in terms of politics and trade unionism, you know, right up until his dying day. My dad was a staunch trade unionist. He was active in the miners' union when he took Napoleon, was invalided at the pits. He was active in the EIS when he was a teacher at Cumnock Academy, and then he was active in Disablement Income Group when he finished teaching, and got involved in that and fighting for the rights of disabled people, along with Nan McMurdo for Cumnock. You probably know.
Yeah.
So it was always, you know, he was always influencing people and always advising people. People came to him for, you know, even just for a conversation, for a blather. You know, it was an interesting person to have a conversation with, and that rubbed off in the whole family. You know, and his grandchildren as well. My daughter, Katrina, and my dad they got on with a house on fire, and after he died, we discovered the letters that she'd sent to him, and she still got letters that he sent to her, you know, and the two of them have kept them and treasured them. But I'm always reminded the lines in the Epistle to John Laprake, "He may ye spark a nature's fire, that's all that's learning I desire." And that these two lines always remind me of my dad, and they remind me when he qualified as a teacher, he had to go to Jordan Hill and do his teacher training, and he was interviewed by the Scottish Miner, which was a monthly newsletter that came out printed by the Miners' Union, and I've still got copies of it. He was pictured on the front page, and he was asked what he thought of university life, and he said the Barney Pit was the best university I've ever been at, and that stuck in my mind, you know, and will stick in my mind to my dying day. It's so poignant and so meaningful, you know, that that's where he felt he got his education in life, with the Barney Pit, and he loved it. He loved it, and he loved the people in it, and he spoke about it. His dying day, he spoke about the Barney Pit and about the characters in it, and could tell you some great stories. Great about people.
But Bobby, you almost tempted us to get into our Burns section there, but there's a couple of things I want to ask you first. What about other sort of hobbies and interests other than Burns? Sports, that kind of thing.
Well, sports, obviously, I'm a football fan, football supporter. I support Talbot, have done since I was about 16 or 17. I started following the Talbot. But I do a bit of fishing when the weather's good. And as a result of that, I do fly tying, tie my own flies. And at the start of the pandemic, 3 years ago, is it now? I had always had a bit of a hankering after doing a bit of drawing and painting. I'd never ever got round to it. My pal, who died a couple of years ago, he used to dabble in it, but he could never, he says he could never get it right. And after he died, his wife, Christine, who we're still very friendly with, she says, you always said you wanted to try painting. Well, there's a set of paints. You've got no excuse me. And she gave me this set of watercolour paint. So I started painting, and I've been doing it ever since, and I absolutely love it, and it takes up quite a bit of my time. So between fishing and fly tying, and then I'm involved in Auchinleck Community Development Initiative, and trying to help regenerate the community of Auchinleck and other communities like Kirk and others. So that takes up quite a wee bit of time, and I like doing a bit of research in relation to that. I write development plans for them and stuff like that. So like to, and occasionally I get out a walk with my binoculars and my camera. I like doing a wee bit of walking round about the area, Eglinton Park, and some of the, I walk along the cycle paths because they're easy. You don't have to climb hills. I never was into hill climbing. The scouts seeked me a hill climb. I'll never forget climbing up what do you call the big hill at Market?
Cairn Table.
Cairn Table, aye. Coming up the back of Cairn Table, trying to reach Market in the early hours of the morning. And I remember the three of us, there was 3 of us in the team, we all lay down in the grass and stared at greeting. Well, it. And when we get back to the headquarters, we discovered we'd won. I don't know. And that was the last time I did any serious hill walking. So I like staying in the flat and doing that.
Very good. Well, talking about flat brings us on to music. How about that for a link?
Well, that's obviously one of my main hobbies is singing. And how that came about, again, believe it or not, is due to my father. When my father was invalided at the pit, we used to get looked after, as all did all the disabled miners, by CISLO, which was a coal industry social welfare organisation. And we used to get a holiday every year at Butlins at Ayr. And I went into the talent competition one year when I was about 14, playing Mamouthi. And I didn't get chucked out, but I get more or less dealt that I wouldn't even be considered because I was too old. If I'd been 13, I would have been fine, but because I was 14, so I was kind of huffed, and I went back to the chalet. And my father said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Oh, I've not to get performing because I'm too old." And he says, "Well, get to the big one." And I said, "Oh, I'm not going to playing the mouth organ." I says, "I wouldn't have a chance," because I'd seen some of the heats and seen some of the talent that was around. And my father says to me, "Well, sing a song." Now I did sing a song, and I'd never thought about doing that, but I did. I sung a song. I sung the Seekers Morning Town Ride, and I won People's National Talent Competition. I won, and I got a free holiday to it, and I think I get £3. That was my first professional gig. I got £3, and you were performing in front of hundreds and hundreds of people, and it didn't bother me then. It bothers me more now. I get more nervous than what I did when I was 14. And that.
So the train whistle would be blowing that day.
Sorry.
The train whistle would be blowing that day.
That day, aye. And from that, my dad took me one day, just out of the blue, took me to a music shop and told me I could have any musical instrument I wanted in the shop. But I think he had a good idea that I would pick a guitar.
So was he musical? Or, I mean, your brother Alex musical because he's in Bletherskite in the band, isn't he? So does that come down from your dad?
Oh, aye. Oh, very much so. Very much so. When I left Cunningham House, when I retired and I left Cunningham House, there was a woman I was in the education, and there was a woman next door in the housing department. And she came in to see me before I left. She says, "Oh, we're going to miss your singing and your whistling when you're going about Cunningham House." And I said, "Well, you could maybe try doing it yourself." You know what I mean? So that was inherited from my dad, because my dad was always singing, and he kent more bits of songs than anybody else ever had in my life. I sometimes try and remember my father singing a full song, and it's hard. The only one I think I can remember is Phil the Fluter's Ball. That was the 30s, when we had parties at New Year and stuff like that. He sang. But he was always singing bits of songs, and such a variety of stuff, you know, for stuff for his own childhood, for musicals, for music hall stuff and stuff like that, Scottish folk music. And occasionally he would burst into Gaelic songs, because my grandfather spoke the Gaelic when he was a younger man, and my father must have picked some of that up, and that's where I picked it up. That's where Alec picked it up. The lassies all do the same thing. The lassies are all decent singers. They're all good singers, but they're no brass necked enough like me and Alec to get into perform. But they're all good singers, and my father, that caused my father a bit of despair, you know, that they wouldn't sing properly. Although Elizabeth does, she likes to entertain.
Good.
Songs, you know, kind of thing.
Well, you become particularly well known as a performer in the Burn circuit. So I think that gives me a good link to pass over to Jim and get you talking about Burns.
Bobby, normally the first question we ask people on this is what got you into Burns. I think we can safely assess that that's your dad. Is that right enough?
Absolutely, aye. You know, I've been thinking all day about the school and whether the school had any influence on me as far as Burns was concerned. And I can't remember anybody other than perhaps Moira Anderson, who was a music teacher. He used to teach music at Auchinleck Primary School, believe it or not. I remember having an influence on me, you know, with Scottish songs and that kind of thing. But no, it was certainly my dad. And the day the light bulb come on, I was actually in my teens, because up until that point, Burns had always been present in the house. But there was one day myself and my pal Stuart Blackmore, we were at Stuart's house in Ballochmyle Avenue, and Stuart's father, Bill Blackmore, who was a great trade union, I think he was a winding engineman at the Barney. Me and my father were round there, and my father was having a dram and Bill was having a dram. Me and Stuart were just sitting listening to the two of them blether. And my father burst into Tam O'Shanter, and Bill Blackmore, he was doing a few kind of actions and sound effects and stuff like that. And we were just sitting absolutely gobsmacked. And it was the first time I would be about 16 or 17 maybe. No, I couldn't have been, it must have been younger, it was before I left the school. That was the first time I'd ever heard my father doing Tam O'Shanter, and it blew me away. And I thought, this is fantastic stuff. And that was when I started reading more Burns. That was the light bulb moment for me. And the rest is history, as I say.
I mean, you and I have discussed, I mean, for example, his colleagues at Connacht Academy, you know, meeting up, and I mean, that must have been wonderful to be, you know, a party to.
Oh aye, it was great. It was marvelous, and there was so many. I mean, there were all clever men, and there were witty men as well. You know, Jim McBride. Did you ever meet Jim McBride? Jim was a
Yes. Yeah.
Jim had gone to my dad for tutoring before he actually qualified as a teacher. There was him, Geordie Mader sometimes as well would appear at my father's, and you know, the stories were brilliant. And then every now and again, you know, the subject of Burns would come up, and they would start to discuss the whys and wherefores as teachers do. You know what I mean? They've got to analyse everything. They couldn't just enjoy it, to analyse all the poems and stuff like that. And then of course there was other Burnsians would appear at my father's. Hughie Mitchell especially, big Hughie Mitchell.
Wonderful man.
they would come up to my fathers, and the conversations there would last for hours, you know. And they were fascinating. Big Hugh was a fascinating person. I loved Big Hugh, loved him. He was a great Burns man, and he did a lot of research into Burns, and could come up with things that were dead fascinating, you know. And I would soak it up like a sponge.
The last time I saw your dad was at the Logan Gate, and Hugh Mitchell come in. It must have been the 90s sometime, because I was a chief inspector at Cumnock, and I got a phone call for the lassie down the stairs. There's a man, Mitchell, here to see you. I said, Hugh Mitchell? She says, aye. I says, well, I'll come down and see Hugh, because I knew him through my mum and dad.
Aye.
And so I'm down to see him. He said, we do me a favour, I want you to come up and do a toast to the lassies at the Logan Gate. He says, the burn supper. I says, aye, no problem. When is it? He told me, and I went. And you were doing the memory that night.
Right. And
your dad was sitting in the corner in his wheelchair. You know, actually, I felt like I was getting a score written down, if I'm telling you the truth. But that was a great, and that's kind of the burn suppers I love, Bobby. You know, doing kind of couthy, you know, miners and sitting in a, you know, in a local pub, having a right good time and really enjoying their burns, you know, right into it. And that's the kind of thing I remember. That's the last time I saw your dad, you know, and I had a blather with him, and he knew who I was, because I knew, obviously, my grandpa.
You're lucky. You're lucky. You must have had an influence on him, because I don't know how many times, you know, we'd maybe by burn supper, and there'd be a young guy there, and they'd come up and say, how do you know Mr. McCallum? And he'd blather away to them. Aye, how you doing, son? Blah, blah, blah. And then after my way, my father would say, who was that?
Well, I mean, to be fair to him, it was the first criticism I ever got with Burns was your dad.
There you go.
He came up to me, bat at me, and he says, that was no bad haggis, son. He says, but Lamb Reekins hyphenated for a reason. True story.
And it's amazing the number of people in the circuit that don't know that. They don't know. That's the thing. I think that kind of annoys me probably the most about people doing burns is that very often they don't actually take the trouble to read the work that they're performing, and therefore get it, you know, maybe get it slightly wrong. Getting it slightly wrong once is fine, but getting it wrong every time is just unforgivable as far as I'm concerned. You know, if you're going to do it right, you know, and because sometimes, you know, the alteration of a word can totally alter the meaning of a line. You know, a classic example to me is we used to have these debates. My father, my love's like a red rose, right? Most people will call that my love is like a red rose. Burns wrote my love is like a red rose, right? Now, if my love is like a red rose, there's a difference between that and my love is like a red rose. One is talking about the person that you love, right? My love, in other words, that woman there is like a red rose. My love is like a red rose is about a feeling. My love is like a red rose that's newly sprung in June. My love is like a melody that sweetly plays in tune. And that can make a world of difference. I might be wrong, but that's my analysis of it. And if I'm wrong, I don't care.
So, where and when did you start with burn suppers?
Good question. I think it was it was the Masonic Club in Auchinleck, Lodge of Boswell St James. And the reason I got started there was because obviously I was into singing, and I did a bit of folk singing, and I started to sing Burns songs, you know, wherever I was, at Muirday in the bowling club in Auchinleck, and, you know, in people's houses and stuff like that. And my friends all, as a series of pals, we all joined the Masons at the same time. people like Davy McGarry, Davy Harvey, Hugh Robertson, you know, and a few others, and they all joined the Masons and all became the High Hegian, whatever it is they cry them, the worshipful master. And it was their job to organise the Burn Supper every year. And it was, and every year they would come to me and say, "Will you sing it for Burn Supper?" Of course, aye, no bother. And it was the year Davy McGarry, God rest his soul. Davy was on the chair and he said to me, "Will you sing it Burn Supper for me this year?" I says, "Aye, on one condition." He said, "What's that?" I says, "If I can get down a poem, a Burns poem." He said, "You can stand on the table and strip naked for all you care, son. As long as you sing." I said, "Right, that's fine." So that was my very first performance of a Burns poem, and it was to a loose. And that was it. The rest, as they say, is history. I just gradually get asked to do poems and songs, and then gradually get asked to do poems and songs and speeches. Nobody's asked me to play the pipes yet, but I'm waiting in it.
So if you did that poem as your first poem, is that remained a favourite, or is there any others?
I love it. I think it's a fantastic wee poem. I absolutely love it. And I don't know if it's appropriate to bring it in at this time. We might bring it in later on, but I'm organising a wee kind of Burns concert in Auchinleck in April, involving the school kids in it, and that's one of the poems that I've asked the kids to perform to loose. I think it's a fantastic poem. It's a great wee poem for kids to learn. It's fairly easy.
And for the benefit of our audience, you don't fancy giving us a bit from it?
Oh, certainly. Aye. "Oh, where you going, you crowling fairly? Your impudence protects you sadly. I can't say but you stunt rarely in gauze and lace. No, faith, I fear you dine but sparely in sic a place. Ugly, creeping, blasted wonner, detested, shunned, the son and sinner. How dare you set your foot upon hearts of finer lady? Get somewhere else and seek your dinner. And some pear buddy, swift, and some beggar's hoffet squat. There you may creep and prawl and sprattle with other kindred jumping cattle and shoals and nation, where horn there been near door unsettled your thick plantation." The first time I did it, Hugh Robertson, do you know Hugh?
Yes.
Aye. Hugh's wife, Mima. I used Mima as the prop. She was sick for the rest of the night, going like that, pulling at her feet. So, aye, great wee poem.
I'm going to say that's still a good Burn Supper to Lloyd's Boys.
Oh aye. It's always been a good job. Unfortunately, I was asked to go last, but I couldn't do it because I was away in Saturday, so couldn't do it, unfortunately, this year. That was the first that I'd been asked for a while. But, and then from that, I think the next Burn Supper I did was Logan Gate. Obviously, because of my father's connection there, did that quite a few years, along with our Alec and Alan Leatherskite. We did that there for a number of years too. And now I've been all over the place.
So before we started recording, I was asking you how many you've been doing this year.
I think I've only got about 6 or 7 this year. 6 or 7, because as I say, I was saying I've cut them back a wee bit because it was getting to the stage where I felt as if people were beginning to take advantage of me. And funnily enough, I had somebody on the phone last night, and I'll not name them, but they were asking, "You still all right for the Burn Supper in a fortnight's time?" And I said, "Aye. Remind me what I'm doing." "Oh, you're singing." "Right, okay." And you said you would do Tam O'Shanter. I thought, "Did I?" Well, if you said that's what I said, then I suppose. And then you wouldn't mind doing the haggis for us. And I'm thinking, if you want me to, come on, I mean, and that's what happens all the time. And I suppose, in a sense, it's my own fault for not being able to say no. I suppose at the end of the day, it feeds my ego.
It's a bit of a compliment to your talent that you can do all of that.
Aye, well, it can be, but it can be a bit much if you're doing Friday, Saturday every year, you know, and you're doing 2 or 3 different things. It can get a bit. It's amazing how much it kind of stresses you and tires you. Because even though after all these years, they still get nervous. Especially doing speeches. You know, the memory and Toast to the Lasses is the one that really stresses me out something wrong. Because
I've heard your Toast to the Lasses. It's not 3 bad at all.
but it's not that. It's just that you just don't know how an audience is going to react. You know, and if especially if Jim Morrison has been talking to me at the FITBA that day and said, "Oh, I was at a bunch done a sportsman dinner last night, and I didn't get doing well at all," and you know, and you're going, "Oh, thanks, Jim." My confidence, you know. I did one once up at Kirkcaldy. It was connection with the paper mill, Ian Farrell that organised it. And I did the Toast to the Lasses, and there was a woman in the front, and she laughed her heart out at every joke, every story I told. She laughed her heart out, and I said, "Mrs. Are you doing on it next week? I'll pay you if you come to the next month's supper with me."
Very good. Well, I suppose probably you're mainly known for singing and playing your guitar. Could we encourage you to maybe give us a wee song? Now, we talked earlier on about the fact that sometimes in Zoom the music doesn't come over. So if it doesn't work, we'll get you to record it and we'll patch it in. But if you don't mind giving us something, that'd be great.
And then in particular, even.
Well, Bobby, we're recording this on Valentine's Day, so something that would fit that might be good.
A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell and then forever. Deep in her wrung tears and blood warring sigh and groan I'll wait Who shall say that fortune while the star of hope she leaves it, mean each gift her twinkle lights me. Dark despair around benights me. I'll never lay my part from Nothing could resist my Nancy. Oh, to see her was to offer love but her and love forever. Had we never loved me kindly, had we never loved say blindly, never, nor never parted. We had never been broken hearted. Fare thee well, thou first and fairest. Fare thee well, thou best and dearest. Thine be ever joy and treasure, peace, enjoyment, love, and if one kiss and then be severed, if it will Allah forever, deep in heart from tears and pledges, warring sighs and groan I with thee.
Bobby, that was brilliant. Thank you very much, and very appropriate for St. Valentine's Day.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
Have you got any other favourite songs, or what do you like? What do you like singing in particular?
It's a good question. That one that had kind of. I tell you again, when I was performing, anytime I was performing in the Cumnock area, after I moved here, I would stay over at my mum and dad's, and of course my father was out keen to ken how a burn supper had went, and it didn't matter what time of the morning I come home for a burn supper, my father would be sitting waiting. He might not be sitting in the living room, he might actually be in his bed, but when he heard me coming in, he would get up and he would come through. How did it go? What did you do? What was you singing? Blah, blah, blah. And he was always asking me, what's your favourite burn song? And I used to say, probably The Last Year I Sung, Dad, because I just love a lot of burn songs. I'm amazed at burn songs. But if I was being honest, I would have to say that my favourite is My Love's Like a Red, Red Rose.
Yeah.
First of all, because it's a beautiful love song, and I think the words are just fantastic. I think the words are just absolutely brilliant. Reminds me a bit of the song, the words in the song called The 12th of Never. You know, until the 12th of never, I'll still be loving you, which I think are lovely lines. But they're no a patch on till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. And I will love you still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. Even saying the words, you know, the hairs on the back of my head are standing on end. It just does that to me every time.
Aye.
And the other thing, the beautiful thing about that song is that you can sing it, and there's two versions of it, two tunes. There's the original tune, and then there's the modern tune, which most people will know. And the first time I heard the original tune being sung, well, first time I heard it being sung well was Willie Stewart, who I consider to be the best singer of Burns songs I've ever heard. And unfortunately, he just doesn't do it anymore. But Willie is fantastic, fantastic Burns singer, very, very professional singer. And he used to sing the original tune to My Love's Like a Red Rose and a few other love songs. So that's probably my favourite. In fact, it's not probably, it is my favourite. It's taken me a long time to admit that to myself.
That's a beautiful song. Beautiful song.
You're talking about songs. What's your favourite poem?
My favourite poem, that's hard. Again, because I like I like so many poems for so many different reasons. I tend to like Burns's epistles, although I don't. I sit and read them. I don't necessarily sit and learn them because being a bit of a kind of a singer and an entertainer, if you like, I'm always thinking about how would that go down to an audience of people who are 99% of them are just there for the drink? How would that go down? And you think, they would probably be bored after 5 minutes. But one of the most fascinating poems, and I've been reading it quite a bit lately, and I'm probably going to try and learn it. Although I don't expect I'll ever recite it because it's just a wee bit too long. Is Halloween. It is the most fascinating insight into the beliefs and the customs of people in Burns's time, because it's all about how Halloween at that time was basically about young people, courting one another and trying to get a lord or trying to get a lassie kind of thing. And they would through certain customs, and they would pull a stalk out the ground, and if it was a certain length, they were destined to get married, and if it was short, then they didn't want to get married. You get my meaning. So an absolutely fascinating poem. But a poem I do love is the Epistle to McCallum. Again, is a fascinating poem. One that it took me a long time to kind of get round to learning that one. And even yet, I think I've only performed it once. So if I was doing it again, I'd probably need to brush up on it. But I like it. What I like about it is that sense of friendship that he shows towards a fellow poet, and a poet who probably, in terms of quality, his work wasn't a patch on Burns, but Burns praised him to the high heaven, as Burns is capable of doing. The way he can elevate things to a higher level just by the way in which he describes them. Classic example, flow gently, sweet afton among thy green braes. It's a wee bloody burn, for God's sake. There will be people all over the world who would imagine the Afton has been a big flowing river, instead of what it actually is, simply because of the way in which he describes it. And that's the genius of the man. That was the genius of the man. But
I hope that's not a sort of football bias coming out against Glenafton.
not at all. No, not at all. I'm not certainly not biased against Glenafton. I don't care who baits them. Oh no, not at all.
But Bobby, you mentioned
I'm not, I'll tell you what.
you mentioned planning to learn Halloween. We did some of our Zoom sessions over the lockdown period. We were looking at various poems, and the only source we could find of somebody on YouTube doing Halloween is Cammy Goodall. So if you want to hear somebody doing it, that's available there.
Cammy's incredible. He's an incredible Burns man. Absolutely incredible. The amount of stuff that he knows, and not just that, he's absolutely fantastic at putting that across. He's probably one of the best there is. Poems, no doubt about that.
It certainly is.
The poem itself is a kind of a problem. I mean, if Burns is doing annotations and the poem when it's originally going out, it's because the folk at the end didn't understand the blinking thing.
Aye, yeah.
So 200 odd years later, I mean, how's the average body going to say, oh, right, you just don't know.
Yeah.
Different times for them.
You think about, when you're looking at some of the Burns poems and you're maybe thinking about trying to do something different for Thomas Anthem, Holy Volley, and the usual kind of the usual stuff, is how would that get done? That's why things like to a loose, to a moose, and these kind of things, they're quick and they're snappy, and people can grasp them and they can enjoy them. It's like the difference between reading the Sun and reading the Guardian. People who read the Sun don't read the Guardian as well. In fact, some of them are lucky if they can read the Sun. Understand what I'm saying? That's the difference. Something like Tail Loose, and that's not to diminish it in any way, but there's no point in going to a Burns supper and doing something like Halloween where people would have difficulty understanding exactly what it is about. You're right, Jim, it's a very, very difficult poem and you've got to read it in wee bits. I just read it in sections and then do a wee bit of research into what that means, etc. But it's absolutely fascinating. And of course, you can see where the influences that Burns had, the old maid, what's her name, Betsy.
Betty. Okay, I should know this because I'm about Betty. Oh dear, it's weird for me. I'm getting terrible.
These were and that superstition permeates through quite a lot of Burns's work, and it must have been very, very prevalent at that particular time.
Betty Davison.
Yep. Where was she for a Davidson?
My
granny and my mother would go up to my granny's on a Sunday up at the Cumnock. She stayed in Alfred Court latterly. And the two of them would start talking about some woman or other, or man, somebody in the Cumnock. And then they'd get into an argument about who they were related to. And it was, oh no, that's a different McCallum mother. You're away and this is, it was fascinating, absolutely. Listen to them. I'm telling you, brilliant.
Bobby, you've obviously played or spoken or done a reading at many Burns clubs. Did you ever join any of them?
I joined the Burns Club for the first time just 2 weeks ago. And the reason I never ever joined the Burns, that's not true. I did join the Logan Gate Burns Club at one time, and I was in it for a year, and then I let my membership lapse. The reason being that when I'm one of these kind of people, I don't want to join something just for the sake of joining it. If I'm going to join it, I'm going to contribute something to it. And there's been lots of Burns clubs have invited me to join the ranks, and I've refused because I just didn't. I didn't fit in them. I wasn't comfortable with them. I probably could have joined and should have joined Pussy Nancy's in Skelmerley because I'm very, very friendly with Jimmy, and I like Pussy Nancy's setup, and I like the way they do things. But knowing Jimmy, I can't resist him, and I just knew he would suck me in, and I would be getting pulled into things I didn't necessarily want to get pulled into. Because since I retired, I kind of, my life comprises a whole range of things, and my aim in life is to cram as much into it as I possibly can before I can cram anything into it. So I don't want to get caught up in too many things and be distracted for the things that I'm enjoying, like my painting, for instance. Which I find absolutely wonderful, and my music, you know, playing my guitar and singing, and I don't want to get distracted for that. So I joined the Kilwinning Burns Club a couple of weeks ago, and I had done a few gigs with them and been at a few events from them and stuff like that, and so I felt it was the right one for me at this particular time. So I've joined that, and but I'm determined, and I've already told Brian Go, don't put me into Only Mayor. I'm not want to be a member of the committee. I think that's what you want. I'm not want to be on the only committee or anything.
Very good. You mentioned Jimmy Law there, and Jimmy's quite famous for his humorous interpretation of some of Burns' poems. You've also got a reputation for finding kind of quirky and humorous songs. And I wondered if there's a song that you could finish off this episode for us with. Is there anything in particular that you enjoy singing? And the second question is, where do you find all these songs?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. I find them on, well, because I'm interested in folk music, because I'm interested in Scottish folk music in particular. I listen to I've got umpteen CDs and stuff like that of people like the Corries, and in fact, Jimmy Law gave me a CD once that he recorded of Corrie's funny songs, and that's where I got some songs for, like the song about the lonely tortoise and a few other things. But I'm also a fan of Matt McGinn's. And I listened to a lot of Matt McGinn when I was younger. Hamish Imlach. In fact, I went and saw Hamish Imlach and Matt McGinn at different times in my life. Corries I've seen a few times. So that's where I get them. Off the CDs, off the internet, out of books. I've got a couple of books there. I think I've got one of Matt McGinn's. There it's there. McGinn of the Carlton, which is all about the, and then there's another one there called One Singer, One Song, which is edited by a guy called Ewan McVicker, which is all about humorous Glasgow songs. And of course, I got some of them from my father.
Oh, very good. Well, if you think about what you would sing for us, just to finish off with, and I'll ask Jim, we're kind of running out of time, Jim, is there any other questions that we want to ask Bobby?
Just the only thing I've got, but what do you see in your future with Burns? Are you still going to be doing the Burns suppers, keeping the numbers?
Yeah, I continue. I've got this project coming off, as I say, with the school kids and some of my friends for the Burns circuit, people like Davy Hunter and Ian Farrell and a few other people, doing the poems and songs of Burns for the general public, because I don't feel sometimes that the general public get the chance. I mean, you know yourself, 99% of Burns suppers are run by Burns clubs, and they're all male, which means that they prevent half the population from ever being able to enjoy Burns. And it's I make no apology for making that statement. I think it's a sad indictment, and it's a sad state of affairs that we don't have more mixed Burns suppers, because I enjoy them more. I enjoy the mixed burn suppers more. It's easier to sing My Love's Like a Red, Red Rose when you've got women sitting in front of you than it is a bunch of ugly, ex minors or or bears for Auchinleck kind of thing. So I'm determined I'm going to do whatever I can to try and bring burns to the general populace. I'm hoping that by involving the school kids, and I've already had, I was at a school thing last week at St Patrick's, Auchinleck. Kids were doing Scottish songs and poems, and it was just absolutely wonderful. The kids were so enthusiastic, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I've got a trip arranged to the museum for the 2 primary sevens for the 2 primary schools, to the Burns Museum and the cottage, and the schools are, the teachers are buzzing about it. They can't wait, and they're like the kids. So hopefully that'll encourage their parents and their grandparents to come along to the Boswell Centre in Auchinleck and hear some Burns without the boring speeches and stuff like that. So that's where my ambition lies, is to continue to try and spread the enjoyment and the value of Burns, because I firmly believe that his works are as relevant now as they were when they were written. When I think of words like a parcel of rogues and a nation, I don't think of the people who joined England and Scotland in 1707. I think of some of the bastards that are sitting down in the house. And when I hear things like "God bless thy chosen in this place, for here thou hast a chosen race," I immediately think of people like Boris Johnson, who I do firmly believe that he believed he was put in this earth to rule over the rest of us, so that these things, these are the messages that Burns was sending out. The messages of how people are valued, if you like, depending on what strata of society they occupy. That's why when Burns went to Edinburgh and he was lauded, it was a passing phase. He left Edinburgh with, apart from the money that he got for his book, he didn't leave with a job for life, kind of thing. And a lot of Burns's works and his poetry is just as relevant now as it was then. And I continue to, when I hear things and read things in the news every day or in the press, and I liken them to some of the words that Burns wrote about the people that he encountered then, about the feelings that people had. That was his true genius. That was, he could reach into people's minds and hearts, and he could describe exactly what they were feeling in his poetry and in his songs. And if it wasn't for Burns, that's another thing, ambition, is to continue to sing Burns' song, because it's kept alive Scottish folk music. If it hadn't been for Burns, I quite believe it would have been dead, and we'd be singing, and it wouldn't even just be English folk songs, it would be American stuff, it would be country and western, or some of that kind of stuff that we'd be singing. He kept it alive by collecting and publishing, getting songs published, kept alive that tradition. And it was that tradition that got me involved in Burns. It was that tradition that my father taught me. And it's that tradition that I'll carry on, hopefully into my grandchildren and my children for the future.
Very good. Well, listen, you mentioned folk music there, so I would like you to tell us what song you're going to sing, and we'll put that in at the end of the episode.
Well, given that the guitar doesn't sound too good, I'll sing a song unaccompanied, which would and it was a song, a great wee song I love. It was performed by the McCallums many years ago. Another great Scottish folk group. One of their members, in fact, died along the road there, Stephen. Oh, today when I get up, the bed was empty. Your teeth were missing to the glass upon the chair. I thought that you'd get up to make the breakfast, and when I'd go in the kitchen, you'd be there. I found the note you left me in my piece box, saying you wanted to get away without a fuss. That's something you must have read in the Women's Weekly, 'cause it doesn't happen to the likes of us. Oh, I blame the whole thing on those stupid stories where a doctor gives a nurse's heart a tug. But how the hell could you run away with a butcher, especially a lousy butcher like Big Shug? Oh, you say that Shug's a good man and I'd like him. That's another line you took right out the book. Oh, I hope his pork gets swine vesicular fever and all his rotten mince falls off the hook. Our life together did not have much passion. I was used to you as you were used to me. But now you're gone, it hurts me kind of funny, like the pain in the space where a bad tooth used to be. Oh, Agnes, come back to me, I need you. I miss your smile, your greeting face and all. But most of all, I miss the colour telly that you took with you the day you shot the crow.
That's brilliant, Bobby. Thank you very much. Well, listen, it just leaves me to wish you great luck with your concert. If it helps and gives you some confidence in it, Newcomnock did one on Saturday with the school kids in and such like, and it was a great success. So I hope you have as much success with yours. And it just leaves me to say thank you very much for telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.